Watching my son Andrew kick the winning goal, that's my dream. Or catching his eye as he holds the science fair trophy. Had held upright with the pride of our triumph. I still remember how my own father looked the night my high school football team won state. Two of my teammates hoisted me onto their shoulders. And when Dad saw me, it was as though he forgave himself for every mistake he's ever made. All because he raised me into the man I had become. I don't care what Andrew decides to pursue in life. I just want him to be great at it. Isn't that what all fathers want? He's going to be 8 next month, and I know the next generation's best have already begun to refine their talents. Mozart began playing at 3. Picasso could draw before he could talk, and Michael Jackson was performing live by 6 years old. It's taken a while for Andrew to find his niche. But lately, he started getting really into mountain and trick biking. His mother Amy thinks it's too dangerous. But I know how important it is to be passionate about your skill set. So I encourage him every chance I get. Amy just doesn't understand. She would see one little cut or bruise, and then suddenly that's all that mattered. I say if you aren't willing to bleed a little to achieve your dreams, then you don't deserve to have them come true. That's why we started practicing in secret. I'd tell Amy that we were just going to ride around the block. We'd both pedal until the house was out of sight. Then we'd blast off toward the hills wearing the same conspiratorial grin. He was good. Fearlessly bouncing down cliffs and rocky slopes that would have even given me pause. Every day he came home a little stronger and a little more confident than the day before. Every day I knew it was worth all the exhaustion and sneaking around, because he was going to be the best and I was going to be the one who made it happen. That is, until the day when it wasn't worth it anymore. We'd just gotten home from a trick competition at the skate park. Although it was hardly fair since Andrew was still 8 and all the other kids were teenagers. Andrew slipped up while trying a nose wheelie, and was disqualified before even getting to show off what he'd been practicing. We were both so frustrated, but I was still proud of him for not wasting any time, and getting straight back to the hillside to practice. I could tell he wasn't being cautious this time. It was my fault for applauding and egging him on to tackle bigger boulders and obstacles. When you're disappointed, you can either give up or try harder, and I just didn't want my boy to quit. He asked if I thought he could jump a rock to clear the gap, and I told him what I thought he needed to hear. You can do anything you put your mind to, I said. We were wrong for believing in each other. I shouted when I saw his back tire slipping, right before he made the jump, but it was already too late to do anything about. The bike pitched forward and hurled him straight over the handlebars, twisting the bike around on top of him as he flipped. Long before I heard the grotesque snapping of his impact, I knew he wasn't going to walk away from this all right. It took a full 10 seconds of listening to his agonized groans before I could force myself to gaze down at what used to be my son.
Let's go home, Dad.
The words should have been enough to bring tears to my eyes. But instead I froze in the grip of absolute terror. It wasn't my son who said it. I turned slowly. Andrew, or at least someone who looked exactly like my son, was waiting for me on the top of the hill, back down the ravine. I still saw the twisted and broken version of the same boy lying there. Knew Andrew rode his bike with great skills, but the sight was spoiled by the sound of coughing blood from further down. I had to make a quick decision. I could either go down the slope, lift my son into my arms and drag him to the hospital, burning through my energy and saving my son toward an abnormal life. I could explain to Amy that I had lied to her, and that it was my fault that our life would never be the same. And if after all that Andrew were still to die, then I know she would leave me and I would have nothing left. Or I could turn around and leave with new Andrew. What's the right thing for me to do in this situation? Watching new Andrew, the answer was obvious. I could turn around and leave with my son, and none of this will have ever happened. I was relieved to see him at the top. The hardest part was hearing old Andrew's voice behind me as I headed home with new Andrew.
Please don't go. I need you, Dad.
I gripped my son's hand, my new son, and held on tight. All the way home. For the next few weeks, I wouldn't let Andrew out of my sight. By the end of the first month, life had gone back to normal and it was like nothing ever happened. The new Andrew was identical to the old Andrew, even sharing the same memories, habits, and everything. Until Andrew was 12 years old, when I began to notice behavioral anomalies that I couldn't explain. But surely the real Andrew, I mean the old Andrew, he would have had his own changes by this age. I tried to tell myself that he was just starting to go through puberty. But even Amy began to feel that something wasn't right.
Do you know what I caught Andrew doing last night?
She told me one morning over breakfast. He's going to be a teenager soon. I'm sure I don't want to know. I replied.
He was eating a bug.
She declared.
A big shiny cockroach, just munching it right up, looking as proud as a kitty cat who caught his first mouse.
Then there was the rustling outside our window late at night. Like someone was in the bushes watching us. Amy wanted me to check it out. But I just kept imagining Andrew running through the field like a wild creature, biting the heads off animals or digging up worms. I think I was happier not knowing. It wasn't just that either. Some nights we'd catch him awake at 4 in the morning, face an inch from the mirror, just staring at himself and giggling. Another time, he had a butterfly knife, God knows where he got it, and was peeling away the skin on the back of his hand. I took the knife away and demanded what he was doing, but all he said was,
"Just curious what goes on under there, Dad."
The worst was when he was trying to get something out of me. Like when he decided he needed a laptop, I told him to wait for his birthday and turned to leave. But then he replied with,
"Please don't go. I need you, Dad."
Those words were burned into my subconscious like a trigger. Whenever he said it, I couldn't even look him in the eye. I just give him what he wanted. It's not because he was the boss of me or anything. There's nothing wrong with me wanting to be a good father. He consistently practiced with his bike, becoming the best I'd ever seen. People came from miles around to watch him perform, and I received praise as his father. He declined big opportunities, claiming he wasn't ready yet, but excelled in local competitions. This upcoming weekend is going to be huge for him. As a YouTube personality, we'll be recording the whole thing. I tried to warn him about the changes that will come after, but he wouldn't listen.
"Isn't this what you wanted?"
He asked me. He sat down on his bed, giving me a look of blameless sincerity as though he was a perfect angel sent here to bless my life. "Don't pretend you know what I want," I told him. I was sick of that grin he always wore. I turned to leave, trying to get out of his room quick enough before he said,
"Please don't go. I need you, Dad."
I don't know why, but that time it really got to me. I turned back to face him, re-establish myself as the authority figure. "If I ever hear you say that again, I'm going to beat your ass until..."
"Until what?"
he interrupted.
"Until I'm as broken as he was."
My breath caught as though someone had reached down my throat and grabbed it from the inside. He's never spoken of the other Andrew before. My hands clenched into fists so tight, I could feel my muscles trembling all the way up my shoulders.
"It was never about me succeeding, was it?
He asked.
You just wanted a little for yourself, only now the light's grown too bright, and you're getting scared."
I want you out of this house, now. I've never spoken like that before in my life.
"You sure Mom agrees with you on that?"
Don't call her that. Get out. I want you gone.
Throw away one son, and it's his fault. But throw away two, and suddenly it's yours.
Andrew wasn't backing down. I threw my fist at his face with everything I got. Maybe I could hurt him seriously. And when he swatted my fist away, it felt like the bones in my hand were rearranging themselves. I hadn't realized just how strong he'd grown.
"Don't be like that, Dad. You wanted me to be the best, didn't you?"
I grunted through the pain and swung again. He locked my arm against his side, and before I knew what was happening, he'd spun me around and slammed me into his closed door. I tasted blood. My arm hurt so bad that it must be about to dislocate. I bit my tongue, trying not to scream. I couldn't let Amy know her son was a monster. Lying there on the ground unable to do anything made me realize how helpless and powerless my real son must have felt waiting for me.
Come with me this weekend, or I'll take you.
I noticed that the voice was changing as he spoke. I didn't want to look, but an irresistible urge forced my head to turn. I saw with my blurred vision. That imposter was changing into demon, with black leathery skin and glowing red eyes, razor-sharp teeth, visible from cheeks, giving chills down the spine. "What do you want from me?" I asked as low as possible. He let me go, and as I slid to the floor, he said,
I'm not like you. I don't need anything from anyone. I just like being on your side of the world. Where I'm from, we don't have families like this.
We looked at window when we heard bushes rustling.
Nunquam swayed me Ivana, sunt malaque libas, it's the Nina Bibas.
This familiar voice was coming outside of the window. As this voice was coming, that creature began to feel uncomfortable. I can see that. As if it was some kind of chant.
Exorcizamus qui omni satanica protestus.
After this, the creature roared as it get pulled by the voice and get trapped into an electrically charged fence. It slammed itself into the window to release. But this time it vanished straight through the portal. By the fading light and without the creature blocking my view, I saw the figure on the other side of the glass. It's my son. My real son was back. I was happy and excited. I wanted to dance out of joy. We both hugged each other as if it was a miracle, and it was. Suddenly I remembered what I did to him, but he was not upset with me. He told me not to worry and replaced topic with the creature incident. He told me that creature is called Irisanct, and they exist as powerless swarms of unresolved desires. Sometimes they will find their way to us through loopholes that exist between dimensions, although they remain harmless until they are given power by our acceptance of them. The Irisanct cannot remain here long without taking a form, and even once they are accepted, they can only stay so long as they replace the void they left behind with someone from our side. When I took the creature home as my son, I gave it the strength to banish my true son to the other side. The real Andrew had managed to return from months ago, watching us from the bushes and protecting us against the Irisanct. When I asked why he didn't reveal himself sooner, he said he was waiting for the right time to come back to us after what I had done to him. After everything he's been through, I am more than proud of him. He wouldn't stay with us long though, saying there are more of the Irisanct leaking through, at an increasing rate. Barely a teenager and already deformed from his injuries and his trials spent on the other side. Andrew is going to keep fighting them, and he's going to be the best there ever was. I watched him go early this morning. I didn't want him to leave, but I know I had no right to speak the words in my heart. "Please don't go. I need you, son."